Heard up here on the, ready to go? We're streaming, all right. So let's call the Finance Committee meeting, regular meeting to order on Tuesday, October 3rd at, looks like 2:32. Any comments from the public out there about the committee? Hearing none. Number 300, fraud risk discussion.
We have nothing to report.
As usual, thank you so much. Number 4, State Revolving Loan Fund Program. Where are we with that?
Okay, so we kind of went over this in our last meeting, but we went through our project list looking at projects that would both meet a timeline that it takes to get funding from the state revolving fund and that may move us up the eligibility list. So we identified the La Mirage area and the mainline replacements there. I was in a webinar just last week with the Department of Water Resources going over the SRF program, and pretty much their loan program, they have, I believe they said $300 million allocated for this year, and with all their applications, they have $2.5 billion competing for that $300 million.
Oh my gosh.
And so they've gone to a ranking system, and looking at ours, it's A through F, we'd be down in the DE ranking area.
Right.
So we can try. I'm not sure we'll get anything, but we can get our applications in there and see what comes of it. Maybe there'll be more money in the future, but they've got a huge backlog.
Well, this particular one, this is providing water to somebody. I mean, this is a critical issue. So does that move it up the list at all, or?
Not really,
Oh.
because it's not, permit violations or contamination
Okay.
or those immediate health risks.
Yes, it provides water, but they're not out of water, so.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
So we're hoping maybe if we section it off just with their income levels, maybe it'd move us into a
Yeah.
disadvantaged community thing. Though the district isn't recognized as one, maybe we can.
So it's
Yeah.
it's probably a checkbox thing of, you check these, and this pushes you higher, and you don't, you get lower, okay.
Exactly.
You can't, yeah, all right.
So we're gonna try it, see what happens.
What's the, you said this is, I heard when I came in, that this has been sort of being pushed back for years and years and years.
Yeah.
What, is there an estimated cost that you're looking for in this?
$4.5 million, I guess.
Wow.
I think we've been budgeting 3, but with the recent costs increase and
That replacing the whole system out there? Yeah, I guess so. It's over 50 years old or longer, not touched.
and you're running services as well because we're moving the main line and
Yeah, exactly.
I think that
road.
was all put in the 40s.
You might be right, yeah. Uh-huh.
So it's a lot older than since we
Are
took
there a lot
it
of
over.
problems out there? Leaks now and then on the main?
When there is a leak, it becomes a big problem.
Yeah,
Trying for them to get the permits to dig in the street to make the repairs.
because they're responsible for those laterals, right?
Yeah.
Oh my
The
gosh.
mains themselves aren't too bad. I
It's-
mean, they're mostly AC,
Yeah,
so that's kind of bulletproof as long as nothing touches it, but there's a lot of lateral issues and there's some problems with the type of joints that we're using.
okay.
So.
Well, that's a lot of money, no doubt.
I guess my feeling is that, yeah, we should go ahead and pursue this for
Yeah.
sure. But also my feeling is that the bigger problem is the way the State Water Control Resources Board, State Water Resources Control Board, is handling the money that the federal government is giving them. If they hadn't given away all of the money in terms of grants, there would be money in the 1 to 2% area that should be available. There's no excuse in a revolving fund for there not to be revolving funds. So my feeling is we still need to make contact with our federal contacts to see if there isn't something that can be done to get the state to comply. Well, the state actually does make a plan, is my understanding, every year on how they're going to spend their money. But obviously, the plan does not include revolving funding. And it seems to me that we should be looking at that plan on a yearly basis. And I think Aqua is doing that, right?
They are, and they did release their plan for this year, and it has 658 million for grants and principal forgiveness for the disadvantaged communities. And like I said, it also includes 300 million for the loan portion, but that is up against 2.5 billion in applications, so.
Well, and that I see as being part of the problem is the you know, if the intent of the federal government, who put $50 billion into the state revolving funds just last year, is to have a revolving fund, the federal government needs to step in and ensure that the states are using it as a revolving fund. And if we don't do something to try to modify the behavior of the State Water Resources Control Board by talking to people at the federal level, it'll just keep going this way. I mean, there'll never be money in the state revolving fund. So I don't know that we need to do it right now, and it may be that we would be benefited to actually get our application in first, and then ask why it's being treated the way it is, rather than complaining about something that we don't have any skin in the game.
Well, we lost Kev McCarthy as our speaker, right?
Well, when I left the house,
Vote is in.
he was losing.
Yeah, he lost.
It ended up being he lost.
He lost.
Well, of course, he could still run.
I know, he's still
again,
congressman.
Because they gotta find someone that can get 218 votes.
I thought it was sad to see. All right. Anything else on the loan program? All right, any current road transmission line funding?
Kind of along the same lines, we've met with the consultants for Cal Muni Public
Yeah.
Financing Authority. So we've got the agreements all in place, and they're out right now, talking with USDA, trying to make the case to skip the pre-application process, which
Right.
cuts down the timeline
Absolutely.
quite a bit. We could be moving pretty quickly here. Hopefully, we're in, like we're saying with La Mirage, we're able to section out just the A zone and get grant funding as opposed to a loan
Yeah,
for
okay.
that. So that's the path we're gonna take, see if we can get there. If not, then it's the low interest loan,
Loan.
yeah.
I really appreciate the fact that I always say, thinking outside the box, you guys are thinking about ways to make it work, like section out, part of La Mirage. And I truly appreciate that, because you gotta, I won't call it beating the system, but you gotta work it the best you can.
Right.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I would like to second that. I don't know who came up with the idea of going to the USDA to get funding, but congratulate anybody and everybody for doing something different so that we can actually get the funding we need. So that's great.
I get that.
It was Chris, and he's not even here.
Yeah, I get the feeling that you guys are having to do a lot of this right now with all the things that are coming up. Yeah,
Yeah.
I truly appreciate it.
Now, welcome on board, George.
Yeah, welcome. You don't have a spare 4 or 5 million sitting around, do you? You want to loan the district?
Not today, maybe if I sell my house in Santa Barbara, who knows?
Well, the stock market took a dump with this vote that went on today, that's for sure. So, have you put in a certain amount for a particular request already?
We're doing like I said, the pre-application, so we're
Okay.
finalizing our numbers so we can put
Okay.
those in there. And we should have those numbers buttoned up pretty quickly.
Okay, cool.
I think we gave them an initial estimate of 6 million.
Okay, and then you're gonna tighten that down, all right.
And I don't think you heard in the last meeting when we talked about doing slip lining with fusible PVC. The early estimate is about $4.5 to $5 million to do it in-house.
Okay. That was to do it in-house, you said? Okay.
The nice thing about going for the DCIP when we did is we've got all the documentation ready to go
Yeah.
with USDA. So
Yeah.
there's no waiting on the environmental or the
Right.
decks or any of that stuff.
Great, all right. Anything else? No public out there? All right, number 6, GA imported water costs.
Yeah, we've been looking at that, so I want to clarify where my initial research is sort of sort of leading me. So there's a couple of aspects of costs. So one is sort of the capital cost, and it appears that the GA plan in the capital cost world is to get grants from the federal government or the state. And if there's an additional, say, a 75-25, that'll probably be a 218 process. So those will fall on, that additional capital costs are not likely to fall directly on our ratepayers unless they're also homeowners who have property. The other big component is sort of, we'll call it the cost of water and the operation and maintenance. Now, the cost to procure water rights, I looked back at the groundwater sustainability plan. There was an initial estimate of some $55 million to procure water rights. I'm not really sure how that cost can be allocated. I don't know that legally you can put it on a property tax because it's buying water rights. I've asked that question. I do not yet have an answer. In addition to that, there are some O&M type costs. So one of the recent releases from the GA was its preliminary design review, and it indicates about $1.9 million a year in just sort of operation and maintenance of the 50-mile pipeline that's proposed, and that's broken down basically as just the electricity cost and the costs for basic maintenance. And we also know from that report that there's a planned approximately 2 months a year of downtime on that pipeline. So we will be switching back and forth between water. So where that 1.9 million gets allocated, it has yet to be determined. So we want to find, at least figure out what that means. And then additionally, there's when you go back to the GSP, there was about a $5.2 million estimate of what it would cost for AVEC to process the water. So there's the treatment cost at the Rosemont plant, plus the wheeling cost of pushing it through the system, plus some other, I can't remember what the third line item was, but for 5,000 acre feet, that cost came out to about 5.2 million. And I'm not sure where those costs get allocated. So we'll be working with the GA to sort of try to figure out where we think those particular costs, because when you start to look at the big difference is, I guess they're going to consider like electricity and O&M fixed costs, and the way they represent it is this cost from AVEC is sort of a cost, they put it out on a cost per acre foot, so it's somewhere north of $1,000 an acre foot. Could very well be higher, but we'll kind of go with that number for right now, and really just use that to say, like, how would we envision these costs being allocated to who in the valley? Because if their plan goes sort of the way it appears to say, if ag is gone and Searles Valley Minerals finds another source of water, there's sort of a limited number of people left in the valley who are going to pay that bill, so to speak. And so we'd like to understand how that happens, and certainly sure make sure that we have a quantifiable, at least a range of values. And we're working with some of our consultants. I'm going down to Riverside, and we're going to kind of refine some of those details tomorrow. And so over time, we're going to try to develop what we think are reasonable range of costs, given various scenarios of who pays for what. So that, and that will probably also include, I've had discussions with Ty about like sort of trying to figure out what a new rate structure might look like if we had a certain cost for imported water and the replenishment fee went away. We'd obviously have to redo our rates, and we'd want to see and maybe start penciling out what a new rate structure might look like under that scenario. If we're doing partially, we're getting water from our wells and partially from the system. And then, of course, we're hoping that we have some productive talks with the GA about some of that imported water, if it were to come, to actually be injected into the aquifer, because we feel like we just can't handle the amount that they really want to send us. And so we want to have an option B. They seem receptive to at least discussing some of those ideas, which is positive. So that's my discussion on water costs. I don't have any firm numbers for you other than to say we're working through it.
Okay, I like to simplify things I can, because if the public was listening, or if we discuss this in the public, it seems to me what it's broken down to is there's capital expenditures which they're going to find funding for. Then there's capital expenditures which they're going to have to borrow, and they want to distribute to all the property owners, right?
Correct.
Then there's O&M costs. Now those O&M costs are going to come to all the water users. That's the one that's going to affect our rate the most. I have a question about capital that's gonna be borrowed. They say they're gonna hit every single parcel, okay? How about the San Bernardino parcels? How about the Inyo County parcels? Are they gonna be included in that tax? I mean, that's just put that in your head.
Yeah.
And that shouldn't just be Kern County, because, hey, these guys are in this as well. So I see it broken down those three main items, and the one that mostly affects our rates, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ty, is that O&M one. An operation maintenance, to keep that thing running, and that would have to include any water purchases or water wheeling and electrical and maintenance and everything. And I think the latest they came up was 9 million or something.
Yeah, if you add the AVEC cost of like I think it's 5.8 that they estimated in there, and then you add another couple of million to that for O&M, and then if you look long-term, if they had to build this additional pipeline that they may need to get us to full capacity, you're probably.
That would be a capital cost.
Well, that would come with another pumping station as well.
Right, another operating cost.
So when you.
More O&M costs.
Yeah, the O&M, and one thing I never understood about the O&M is it include the yearly payment of water, not just wheeling it. The water rights are a capital expenditure, and you're right, I don't know if that's covered under anything you borrow,
Right.
but does the O&M include the yearly actual purchase of the water along with its wheeling?
I do not believe so. I think there's a one-time the way I see it broken out in their plan is the 55 million is a one-time cost to purchase water rights, or that's the way it appears. And then,
Right.
and then the 5 million is sort of like the cost per acre, at 5,000 acre feet, you come up to about 5 million to actually get the water here. So there's this.
I see, Ty.
But I
If the-
think,
Hang on, Ty, what, you
I
want
was
to
gonna
clarify?
say, if they actually go through with the AVEC water right purchases, because if they go with the state, then yeah, there would be an additional.
Right, because as I understand it, that yearly you're gonna pay a fixed cost based on rates set by the state government on the amount of water that you have the rights to.
Right, not that you're.
Right, and then the water you actually get, you're gonna get a variable rate charge for that. And to me, those are the charges that go into, I don't know that they've covered that entirely in that $9 million.
Yeah, I think they're pivoting to the AVEC water rights.
Yeah, okay.
well, the table, I think I remember the $55 million Table A purchase, which is a one-time purchase, and I don't know if that goes under capital or not, I suppose it does. What we're currently buying in terms of Table A is costing like 50% or 60% more than what they had envisioned in the GSP.
Yeah.
So I think that $55 million for Table A rights is probably more like 80 or 90 at this point in time. And I thought that our engineers had gone through and reevaluated that. Stewart and
I thought
Krieger and
they were
Stewart.
looking and still working on that
Yeah,
simple thing we're asking for.
yeah, and I think it's well above 55 million at this point in time.
Because what I'm asking for and hoping they'll come to is say, just the three I talked about, capital that's borrowed, capital that's funded, and actual real O&M costs that include everything. Because I'm just not sure, I'm not convinced they have everything in that cost yet, but George is working on that, eventually we'll get there.
Oh.
I think it's, personally, from my calculation, I think it's more than $11 million range a year. Yeah.
You gotta keep peeling back the onion and just keep working at it and working with them and talking to them and meeting with them, you gotta have to do that.
And that's why Krieger and Stewart is so important right now, because you're gonna need that information fairly soon so you can start penciling in what new rates are gonna possibly look like in the near future. And so Krieger and Stewart is gonna have to come and work with everyone that's involved and get as close as they can to the O&M cost. So, because if you get O&M costs from the GA that says, oh, they're $9 million, and you know that the ratepayers are paying for that, you gotta factor that in, but on the other hand, it goes to 11.5 million, let's say, or 11 million, that changes everything. So that's an important number.
Yeah, and this is one of the reasons, like we talk about, not wanting to be the only person receiving the water. So if water comes to us in part and is also injected into the aquifer, we believe that it opens the door for the GA to have different rate structures, since water's being directly injected into the aquifer as well as being delivered to us. So we're not sure if that's something they would agree with, but certainly it's something that can be. It's a little more rational to explain to other people pulling water out of the aquifer. We're pumping it in here, it's being pumped in here, how do we pay for it? It might.
And they don't know the capital cost of this end yet. Because if it ties into our system, the estimated additional capital costs we're gonna incur within our system is about $20 million, according to Krieger, I think, wasn't it? Somewhere near 20 million. And if for that one, so what if they have to do an injection? What is that? So I don't know that they have a firm handle on the total capital cost yet, because they don't know what's going on this end yet.
Yeah, and I think they indicated they're not even to 30% design, so I think we're at a good point to really begin having discussions with them about other possible configurations or scenarios. I talked with Renee about the route that they have proposed, and is there a better route to look at alternate routes even that come into areas where maybe injection is a little more feasible, and if we tie that into the project. So we're looking at a lot of different options. We understand they're on a tight schedule, but I think they're at that, like I said, if they haven't gotten to 30% design yet, I think we still have the opportunity to try to have some input and work cooperatively with them to get to the best possible.
When do they have to have the funds earmarked? I thought they were a big hurry to get a certain amount of money earmarked. Okay,
Yeah.
that's gonna have to have the number?
Yeah, so I think, I'm not gonna get into their finances too
Yeah.
much, but they're, they may need additional funds at some point beyond that point.
Yeah, it's just
We'll
that
have to see how it
they were
goes.
pushing to make a decision because they had to do something with Congress. And I thought they needed some amount of money that they're gonna earmark somehow.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, if they say we need 200 million, then we know we have to come up with roughly 50 million,
Yeah.
whatever it may be.
And they were clear in the meeting that the request to Congress didn't lock them into a specific design or a specific solution, that was still to be determined. So at least according to their GA meeting comments, that the door is still open to make changes to the design. This is really just a feeler out to Congress to say, they're gonna get the thumbs up or to get this funding and move forward. And I think design changes could occur along that path, as well as cost changes, which are always occur.
But, I think it has always been clear, in my mind anyway, that we never have needed as much water as what the GA is currently saying we need to import. I mean,
That's good, because we'll probably never get that amount.
well, I mean, the original number came from the Searles Valley was going to actually use half of that original 5,000 acre feet.
Yeah.
And of course, we don't know what Searles Valley's plans are, but that doesn't mean that we need an additional 2,500 acre feet.
Renee, you had something?
Well, I was gonna say, I know their number, they said yesterday was based on like 2070. So it's like the ultimate,
Oh, I see that, when we have this huge growth
like
in Ridgecrest and
1%
everything
growth
else.
a year, yeah.
Yeah, whatever it may be.
Yeah. So we
Okay.
We sort
They
of,
point out we're using less
I'll be-
water.
I'll be
and then
gone
we'll
by
most
then.
likely keep using less water. So, yeah.
It's just I just want to feel comfortable. I hope eventually we get to the point where we feel comfortable with the numbers. Doesn't mean we agree with it at all, but we need to know those numbers. Because how can we plan our future here if you don't have them? And as long as they're here and we keep thinking they're forgetting things, that's why I think Krieger and Stewart's so important, because they grab all this stuff too, and they can come to us with, if GA doesn't have the actual numbers, Krieger and Stewart can bring us something that's fairly close. They've been pretty reliable all these years. So, and plus you guys are getting a lot more information in these staff meetings than we are hearing as the board right now. So I'm always interested to hear, things like that were discussed. And I assume money's being discussed a lot right now in those staff meetings, huh?
yeah, we keep asking the questions, and they don't have a lot of answers, but some of the first questions aren't the exact dollar amount, but like if you need to purchase water rights, how do you finance it? If you're gonna have O&M costs, who's gonna pay for that? At least if we can nail those things down, we at least start to understand where different costs are gonna be allocated, because I don't even think we have a clear picture of that at this point.
And that's why I said I don't think they have a clear picture of the total capital cost, because it depends on what they do on this end. If for some reason it's agreed they're going to tie into our system as they plan, so where does the $20 million in capital costs that have to be expended within the district to make that system work in our system? Have they included that in anything yet? Probably not, is my guess.
And we did talk about additional treatment on our end, and that may be something else that they're willing to discuss in terms of, you know, when the water comes over here, what might we need to do with it? So I don't know.
It wasn't just treatment. There were, according to what Krieger Stewart had in that report, there were pipe size changings, and there were a few other things that were, came to about $20 million. I don't have it with me, but I do remember when he did that thing. Remember Stanley, when he reported they were on a list there, about $20 million. And that I don't think that included just treating of water. That was just tanks and piping and everything else, I
There's
thought.
a lot of how exactly it's going to be
Right.
introduced to the system, so
Yeah. But there's going to be a cost.
100%.
An extreme cost, yeah. And they don't have that yet. So I'm afraid they're gonna say, okay, the government's gonna give us 175 million, we're out for a bond for another 55 or 80 million, and oops, we forgot 25 million, where's that gonna come from? And, you know, hopefully they'll get there. I got faith in you guys. It sounds to me like you're talking more. Is that a true statement?
That's correct.
Good. Yeah. Anything else, Dan? Okay. On to tuition reimbursement. I meant to be turning that in. I'm just kidding.
No, we have so the district currently pays for, you know, water treatment certifications for our guys.
Right, yeah.
The maintenance and upkeep of our IT systems is equally important. We have an employee, oh my God, hold on. We have an employee currently going to college.
Right.
I'd like to ultimately request the board approve approximately $6,000 to pay for his last 2 semesters in college. He's working full-time here and going to college, making a better life for himself. He wants to stay here. He's done some great things for us on the IT side. I feel like it's not I don't want to sort of say this is a policy that applies to everyone. I think it's a policy or a decision that could apply to this specific employee because he's sort of unique in what he does. And we all understand all the risks of cybersecurity attacks and IT management and all those things. So certainly I'm in favor of advocating. I think the district already gives him $3,000 a year. So I did have some discussions with his employee. I think it's a reasonable investment for the district to make in our IT infrastructure to assist this person who's actually doing some pretty cool things and wants to get his degree and indicates he'd like to stick around, and we think that would be great for us.
Is this currently our policy, the one that's in here?
That is
Okay.
straight out of the manual. And I would like to point out that I actually utilize, on a personal note, I utilize this policy.
You did better at C or better? I'm just kidding.
That's going to be a closed session item. But it was $3,000 a year when I used it, and that was 20 years ago. So.
Oh, okay. So maybe something that has to be looked at here in the near future. But in the meantime, what you're advocating, George, is you have an employee that basically has 2 years worth of reimbursements coming, is that I'm hearing?
2 semesters.
2 semesters, I'm sorry, this is per semester? Or is this is per year, okay.
Yeah, so he has about 2 semesters. I could get actual details, but I first wanted to present this to this limited committee, and if you guys give us a thumbs up, we'll take it to the full board, and if we do that, I'll have actual sort of.
I don't know, I mean, this is the policy, and it looks like you're in control of it. I mean, I don't think it has to come to the board as long as you're within the policy. Is that how I read this?
Right, George is asking for an additional 6,000.
Oh, okay.
So the 3,000 he's already received, and so I'm saying that I'd like to see us compensate.
Yeah, that would, because that's outside this policy.
And he can get another 3,000 because the semester will be next year. He'll get an additional 3,000 from that. So he's asking for whatever additional costs there are.
Right.
So it's approximately an additional $6,000 over 2 semesters to get him finished with college.
My feeling is that an employee that is getting education that will support his work here, and if it will encourage retention here in the future, then I think education's a good thing.
Especially when it comes
And
to
we should
IT.
encourage it.
When it comes to IT and cybersecurity. Are you implying, Jason, that we probably, at the same time, should probably rework this policy to change that dollar amount? Do you think it should be looked at?
You may want to look at tuition costs and see where they're at.
I don't have a problem with that. I think if the staff and George want to look at that particular reimbursement policy, since it is like you say, very old. You may want to look
Yeah.
at changing it, and I have no problem.
Certainly tuition has gone up in the last 10, 20 years.
So if you want to bring something back to this committee at the, for next time, that maybe is a proposed new policy, why don't you do that?
Okay,
And get
maybe
on
what
the
I'll
board
do
for
is
approval. Yeah,
look at an average sort of like, I think 12 units is a normal semester load and what that would cost at a California state school. Maybe certainly not gonna look at private school costs, but at California state schools and see what that is and maybe use that as sort of a baseline.
and as long as Ty over there agrees with the amount of money, and we, I know, it's every little bit, and telling you, especially now. But I agree with you, I think that anybody's gonna further education, and that's why I think this policy ought to be looked at, because if that's that number, I saw that number, it is an old number, yeah. It was back when you were in school there, Jason, I think it's ancient. Yeah, no,
Back when we rode dinosaurs to school.
I know. Yeah, did you have hair back then when you were in school?
Yes.
Okay, just want to be sure. All right, anything else on tuition reimbursement? Hearing nothing, financial statements.
All right, through September, so we're a quarter of the way through the year already somehow. We have actual revenues of 3.854 million versus 4.17 million, so we are coming in a little below budget on revenues. Expenditures at 3.8 million versus a budget of 4.5 million, so we're down on below budget on expenditures. So the net is 28,000, which is almost $400,000 better than budget.
Okay.
So even though our revenue's down, we're staying lower on the expenditure side and coming out ahead budget wise overall.
Okay. Looks pretty good. Are we still paying the replenishment fee as we agreed on the original?
The 4390.
Yeah,
yes.
4390, okay.
Yep.
That's what I thought.
We did supply the GA with next year's estimated payments.
Okay, So
Because
you-
they were busy preparing their budget. It's
Yeah.
down quite a bit. We're estimating 2.5 million for next year just
Right.
because our water consumption.
oh yeah,
continues to decrease.
it's gone down quite a bit,
So we'll probably have a credit from this year
yeah.
to go against that as well.
So can I ask you a question? There was an email that asked for us to differentiate between, I guess, water purchase dollars and what they would use for the well
For
mitigation.
the shallow
Why-
well
Yeah,
mitigation.
why do we make that determination and not them with that funding?
Well, it's set in their resolution how much goes to which fund. They want me to do the math for them.
Oh yeah, because it's,
It's like 1950 per acre foot goes towards the shallow.
yeah, that's what it was,
mitigation.
yeah, right.
So I don't know.
Oh,
why
they want you
can't
to
do
break
that.
it out, this is replenishment, this is well mitigation.
Yeah.
Oh, thank
So
you.
they're asking you, okay.
They do their math, I know what you're saying.
They're-
The
so I haven't
21,
done it yet,
yeah,
but-
whatever we pay in replenishment fee,
Sorry,
so much of it is for, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
the implication was that somehow we decided how much went to wells versus how much.
Maybe they want to make sure it's in there, maybe they think it's not all in there.
You know, I can do it. It's really easy. I just
Okay,
haven't
so,
wanted to.
Yeah,
sorry I brought it up, but, okay.
oh, well.
Yeah, we have to break it out in the letter that we supply to them or provide to them as well every time we make a replenishment payment.
Well, maybe they want, I don't know, maybe they want proof of how much is for mitigation, but they should do it themselves, you think?
It's,
Yeah,
yeah, it's really not a big deal for me to do it. I just haven't.
because you know what you're doing. All right,
So, any
Look,
more questions on financials?
let's see. I don't think so. You have anything on financials, Stan? Anything to ask?
No.
All right. Looks like we got one viewer. I wonder who that may be.
Probably
Okay.
Tristan.
Probably, yeah. Could be. All right. So you feel pretty comfortable, we're sort of on track?
Yeah. I mean, these, whenever we have a new rate schedule that goes into place, especially one where we change the methodology, I get a little anxious. So I'm just watching it, making sure we're doing okay and tracking. We'll see where we're at mid-year. If we have to make an adjustment, we'll make an adjustment.
But water sales, I mean, that's a lot. I mean, is that typical we see? I can't remember if it's typical we see this time of year, but we're sort of starting to wind down towards the winter. now,
Yeah,
aren't
we came in about 10% less in usage for
Yeah.
September compared to the previous September. I had budgeted at a 9% overall reduction, or a 5% reduction for the whole year, so we'll see. It wasn't as hot in September.
Do you monthly budget, do you weigh the monthly, or do you just take and yearly, just do it by 12?
So I average it, how much we typically expense each month.
Okay, so,
Whatever month it is per year, I've looked at the last 10 years.
okay,
and
so
that's
you try
kinda
to get a
my average.
weighted month, okay, I mean, best you
No,
can.
Except that you understand that for the last 10 years, it hasn't been going up and down, it's been going
Pretty much down, yeah.
So.
Right, but I take a
uh,
percentage,
Right.
in September, it's X
Oh.
percentage of
But-
the year.
But you would, the total water sales, that difference, I'm assuming since the fixed fee is pretty constant, that most of that money is associated with a decrease in water sales.
Absolutely.
Okay. And you're right, that is what we have to watch.
I mean, in one way, it's good that what people are conserving, but it's the reason we have fixed fees. And I'm saying this, we have one listener. I mean, everybody wonder why can't everything always be based on usage? And this is a good reason why. Because you've got to have that fixed rate in there, we couldn't operate.
And water's cheap. It's
Yeah.
everything else, the infrastructure that costs the money. And you have that regardless of how much water you
That's
go
right.
through.
All right. Anything else?
We realize that as water production goes down, I mean, at one point in time, when we were using 3 times as much water, there was volatility in how much we were pumping. At this point in time, my feeling is that there's not 20 or 30% that we could reduce.
No,
No, there just isn't. So the volatility is way down from what it was 10 or 15
A
years
lot of people
ago.
are still out there doing things in a lot of yards and places and things that happen. So I don't think we'll see like we did before. I don't know if this is time to bring this up. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I don't know if you'll see a massive reduction like before, but as people transition from swamp coolers to AC, you're still gonna see that reduction.
Yeah, and you're also saying all new homes are AC now and all that. Because this falls under sort of total water sales, if and when Homestead, and what's the other two we're combining with this?
Hometown and Dune Creek.
Hometown, yeah.
Dune Creek.
When that comes in, obviously, I got 2 questions there. One, do we get credit for their wells? You know what I'm saying, on our money, our 41, whatever it is, it should go up. And secondly, that's what, 2 years down the road yet before you start budgeting anything in for the operation and usage of that system?
Yeah, you're probably 2 years out.
2 years down the road, okay, that's what I was asking. I know you've been working on it for, everybody
About 12 years.
thinks this happens quickly, and when I went,
Wrapping up.
and you might have seen this when you discussed it at the meeting, the policy advisory, they're talking about this thing. And they seem to think that when someone wants to tie into our system, especially one of these mutuals out there, that it happens pretty quick. It doesn't happen pretty quick.
I want to comment, and you hit on this point, which is that, historically, we haven't had a big incentive to bring wells into our system. However, if we were able to take credit for our overall allocation at some point, that's an incentive. If there's like this Rademacher, there's 12 or 15 houses, you might the district might be able to start making different financial decisions based on, hey, if we put a pipeline in here and we get 10 or 15 customers on that pipeline, it might change our thought process, especially if we get another, to bring 10 houses on, to get 20 extra acre feet of water. Those can be interesting calculations for us to look at in the future. So I think you're hitting on something that could impact the way we operate in the future.
That too, and whenever the GA is reviewing those wells that are no longer pumping because of a low
Right.
water table, if it's feasible, they should be
Yeah.
some sort. It may be cheaper to connect them to our system.
Exactly, there may be some lines run right by there all the time. Ones that concern me is if they have a water quality issue, and they happen to be a mile and a half away from any hookup to us. That's a big issue, but that's what they're supposed to be working on, and I don't know if they are or not.
Yeah, we had a lengthy discussion in the policy meeting about what does it mean to have degraded water quality and what would be paid for. Certainly the initial feedback from the GA was that, like, we're only gonna pay for putting new wells in, but that doesn't seem appropriate when you have a water quality issue, because you might have a small piece of land and really the water down below is just not suitable no matter how you drill the well. And that they might look at putting some sort of treatment on there as well, or maybe, like you said, suggest if it were possible to bring them onto our system and get some of those fees to help augment that, that would be good.
But I know they got the money, the GA did, and you guys talked about, it, maybe not your meeting, they got $3 million from the state to combine system,
Oh, yeah.
but I tried to tell them $3 million won't go very far.
Well, I thought that was all part of that whole shallow well mitigation, is that before we actually put in a new well, that we looked at consolidation, either among local area or consolidation with the water district. Because we can't afford to, at some point, afford to buy everybody a new well, especially if it's water quality. That means you have to just go down further and maybe get better water, as opposed to buy water from the water district that is responsible for the quality of the water.
My opinion, if the well's over 40 years old, we shouldn't be putting a new well anyway. We ought to just, it would reimburse we talked about this.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
all right. We'll get you moving along here, Ty. Anything else on this? Accounts payable disbursements, let me see.
Page 1.
Yeah. Go through page, you want to go through each one of these one at a time under this?
I might kind of go through the big
I know.
ones.
Yeah.
So the first page, there's nothing there but payroll taxes, really.
All right,
Second page, 62,000 to our insurance, Aqua JPIA.
right,
We got 37,000 to Best Drilling and Pump for well 33.
okay,
67,000 to the IWVGA, that is our pumping fee.
okay,
We got 87,000 to McMurtry, Hartsock, Worth, and St. Lawrence. 30,000 to Murphy and Everett's. 168,000 to RSH Construction for the tanks and boosters. 31,000 to SCE for power. That's probably a arsenic plant. And 17,000 to Univar for chemicals.
okay.
Nothing on the next page.
Payroll taxes.
Then we got a
okay.
big one for the IWVGA, 392,000 for the replenishment fee.
Where is that? I'm not seeing it. Let's
I'm
see.
sorry, what page?
Second to last.
Second to last.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
And then Sederma, $22,000. That's our true
I'm
up.
sorry, I've lost track.
Yeah, I'm trying to find that three.
Hey, was there
I was
anything,
following you and.
was there anything on page 3?
No,
No, nothing on page 3.
that's just a total.
Oh, I see. It's on the one with the taxes.
Yes.
Yeah, you have that one's broken out.
Okay,
Yep.
so
Right.
on page 4,
Yeah, that's,
the 392 is the replenishment fee.
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
And then Sederma is our true up workers' comp.
Okay, so you have the replacement fee there. Didn't I see in the Oils Valley?
It was for the pumping.
Okay, so you're putting a pumping fee and keeping the replenishment fee obviously separate on the one with the taxes.
Yeah. Sometimes we pay them together. This time it just didn't work.
So are we over 10 million?
No.
Replenishment? I think we are.
We've got to be getting close.
Yeah, I thought we were just a few 100,000 away from that. Okay.
Okay, that was page 4?
Yeah.
Okay, now, page 5?
Page 5, we got CLC construction, almost 24,000. Is that still valve cans? Valve cans for the city street projects. Lenovo, 24,000 for the PCs. We had to replace our outdated PCs. On-stock construction, 17,000. That is for patching.
Matching, yeah.
Santa Fe Water Systems, 26,000. That's for pipe and supplies. And another SCE for 15,000.
Are we gonna see that start to drop?
Once those plants are offline? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I thought. Yeah.
Okay, Ron, I'm not sure, are you wanna ask for, input from the public before we?
Yes, I was asked for public input and any input on this. Anything from the public? Nada.
Then I do need a recommendation on this
I'd
one.
like a recommendation that we, request authorization to pay these.
Okay, I agree with you. I think that we ought to approve the financial statements and obviously the accounts payable. It's the most important one. All right. No comments? Nothing, still nothing from the public? Nothing, okay. So we'll move on to future agenda items. Anything we want to add? Detract? All right.
No.
All right, with that, meeting adjourned at 3:16. Got papers everywhere.